So the conversation on style of parenting is a continuous one, and today joining me to share her own experience as a parent is a lawyer and also the founder of Working for Family Stability Initiative, an NGO. I have with me today Madam Stephanie Ekpebulu. Good afternoon,
Good
ma'am.
afternoon.
Welcome,
Thanks for
welcome,
having
welcome, welcome.
me.
Yes, it's always a pleasure having you.
Yo, you can say that again.
So, for someone who was born in the 70s, tell us what was your upbringing like? What was growing up like for you?
Wow. What would I say? Okay, born to a military father and a teacher mother.
Interesting combo.
Yeah, two disciplinarians. There were times when my mom would tell my father, "Oh, let's beat her. Let's discipline her." You know, it wasn't easy, but there was this protection too, because for fear of my father,
Okay.
okay, who was an army officer, and then but they were very very protective. I remember when my father retired from the army and when the old River State, then now Bayelsa State, there was a day there's this somebody my age who came around and wanted to be friends, and then there was this day I said, okay, let me just go and visit her, and then I hadn't spent up to 5 minutes. My younger brother came in. He's blessed memory, he said now. He walked in and then was just looking everywhere. And I asked him, I said, what's the problem? He said, Mommy said I should come and check if there's a man here. So,
How old
yes,
were you?
I was 12.
Wow.
Was I up to 12? Yeah, 12, 13. I wasn't up to 15 years. I was in secondary school.
Okay.
So our parents then were, I don't know what, protective, but
Overly.
overly protective. But you see, at that time, we saw them as busybodies. What is wrong with these
Like, give us a
people?
break.
What I mean? But strangely, I'm doing that to my children, although not not to that extent. But I remember my last child, she will be 19 in June,
Okay.
29th June, and then she got an invite to go over to Lagos to see a friend of hers, schoolmates. She was, I think, 2 years a senior in school, that she was getting engaged and all of that. And I told her, my dear, you're not going. Mommy, you're a killjoy. Oh, she almost brought down the roof of the house. But
Typical Gen Z.
yeah. But you see, I kept telling her things, what could possibly happen, and all of that, with things that you see, as a lawyer, and being a member of FIDA for years, some of the reports we get, they're, my dear, when you hear them. In fact, if I was giving birth today, like I would give birth today to a child, nobody will carry that my child though. Even you. If you are taking that child from me, say you want to hold the child maybe for an hour, I will warn you, please don't allow anybody touch this child. Because we have a lot of things happening in our world today. You can imagine where a child, an infant, 2 months old baby is being, messed up with by neighbor, by uncles, those who ought to protect them. So a lot is going on today. And honestly, I fear
The
for them.
future.
Honestly, because I don't know what will
So,
become of our
so
children's
you're saying
children.
that the tough love you experienced from your parents
Yeah,
eventually paid off,
exactly.
even though then you did not understand why,
Sure, sure, sure.
because of the things that are happening in the world right now.
Exactly.
Okay. You said your father was a military man, of course. Momsy was a teacher. Who were you closest to? What was
Well,
your relationship with them like?
daughters are always close with their fathers. You can't take that from us. And then, especially when you're the first daughter.
Oh, okay.
So I was closest to my father. We were friends.
Hmm.
Yes, my father and I were pals.
How was that relationship? I mean, you said he was a disciplinarian. So how were you able to cope?
Yes, exactly. That's the point. I don't even understand. But somehow, we just could flow. There was this. There was
Like,
this.
could you tell your father everything and anything that you were going through
Even if
at
my
that
father
point
was a
in time?
disciplinarian, now let me give you in 1982 when we retired, and then we came over. There's this practice of circumcision in my place, in
Okay.
my community, female circumcision. And then I was 10 then, and when my father came to announce to me that we're going to the village and that I was going to be circumcised, I just looked at him in the face, small me, and then look at my tall father with his mustache, stand looking. I said, Daddy, Is there anywhere in the Bible that they said females should be circumcised? I'm not going, no. And that was it. My father never spoke about circumcision. He never even talked about it anymore. That was the end of it.
Wow.
So, yes, they were disciplinarians, but they were also loving and listening parents. That's one thing, some of the things we lack in parenting today.
Okay.
A lot of parents don't even care about the welfare of the children. All they know is scold, scold, hit. I want to discipline. If you not beat them, you go spoil. Oh, do not spare the rod and spoil the child.
That was the next question I was going to
All
ask.
so hard on the children. They don't care to find out when they come back from school what happened in school. You see, in as much as I want us to be disciplinarians, we should also be friends to our children. I'm very close to my children.
Okay.
But no matter how close you are to your child or your children, there are certain things your children will tell you. I tell you that. I could observe this closeness between my oldest daughter. I mean, the two younger ones are girls.
Okay.
Yes, and the other one is doing her master's now. This is in her third year in the university. But I can see that most times you see them gossip. There are things they are discussing, and I walk in and, Mommy, we're talking. It's girls talk. It's girls talk. And sometimes I'll begin to wonder. I thought we were close. How come you're talking with
This
your
one is
sister
girls talk.
and you don't want me to know about it? So, but we should try as much as I know it's not easy with a lot of challenges here and there. We're thinking of the next me, we're thinking of how to pay fees. But I would advise parents to be close to your children so that when probably there's a bully out there that is bullying your child,
Yeah.
you would be quick to find out and know how to arrest the situation before it gets out of hand. And I want to also add that if all parents would wake up, to do what they ought to do, we won't also have bullies that will be bullying other children. So parents should be intentional
Okay.
and look out to see how they can harness the potentials of their children to ensure that their purposes, God-given purposes, are fulfilled in life.
Now, this thing you said now brings me to my next question. Is it possible for you to be a good parent, do the very best you can for your kids, and they will turn out the complete opposite of what you've always planned for? Is it possible to be a good parent and have bad kids?
Um, hmm, this question is a tough one. I can say yes and I can say no, but the no is a faint no.
Okay.
It's a faint no because I have seen some families where I see the parents as wonderful parents, although I wouldn't know their pasts and I wouldn't know the genealogy, what had happened in the previous generations in the family. Whilst we look at the physical way that we bring up our children, we should also look at the spiritual side. For me, I like to look at the spiritual part of life because you cannot do without the spiritual. And then we also should learn how to balance it. So, and the word of God says, train up a child the way he should go, and so that when he's old, he will not depart from it. But I've seen wonderful parents, and then their children turn out to be something else. Probably they did not pay attention to the children. Probably. I said probably. It's not cast on stone. So it's very possible that they just believe that I am a wonderful parent. So
I'm
I
doing
don't
a great
expect,
job.
yes, I don't expect my child to do otherwise. But sometimes we forget the fact that these children interact with people outside. And so they can be influenced by their peers. So the good parents, you could see, outwardly, you could see that this is a great parent, but wouldn't know how much they invest in these children. So,
Behind closed doors.
exactly. So that's why I said initially, before now, that it takes intentionality
Okay.
for you to raise a child or children. So sometimes we just, take some things for
So
granted.
it's not black, it's not white, there are gray areas.
Say yes,
Gray
yes,
areas,
exactly.
rather.
That's why I said I can say yes, I can say no, but the yes is faint, But somehow, if we are intentional, and then probably we also put our feet down to realize, to understand that we also made some mistakes and wouldn't want these mistakes to repeat itself. So we have to now be intentional and then, watch and pray while you raise your children.
Okay. The next thing I would like to know is a very popular phrase that says it takes a village to raise a child. Do you think that is still obtainable in our society of today? Because I've heard people say you can no longer correct your neighbor's child when he or she is doing wrong. Especially if this neighbor had to wait for years before giving birth. The next thing they're telling you, go and give birth to your own. Don't kill my child for me.
You know, the world is
Even
getting.
in school, there's a level of discipline you apply to a child, and then the parents come complaining.
Yes, I agree with those parents who would complain. You see, discipline is different from being persecuting. Some people just persecute the child. If you are disciplining a child, you should let the child, for instance, if I flog a child, if I spank a child rather, I should tell the child why I'm spanking him or her.
Before or after, or either ways.
Either ways. You
Okay.
can tell before
You can tell
or
after.
tell after.
Okay.
And sometimes you can come into an agreement. I remember when my last child was in the habit of gums, chewing gums. I just sat her down one day when she demanded for it. I bought her a pack. But before I gave her a pack of gums, I asked her to write an undertaking that she was not going to, demand for gums again. I wrote it out. She copied it. She was 5 then. And then she just scribbled something like a signature, and that ended it. But some parents will say, beat out the spirit of chewing gum in her. So I am not against discipline. You can discipline, and then you see the way you raise. One thing that parents do that I do not like, you don't compare. You can have parents from same womb, but they are different. So you don't say, oh, because your sister is like this, you have to be like this. Or because your brother is like this, you have to be like this. We all came differently. We all have our purposes. We are unique. So what you do as a parent is to see how you can raise this child to fulfill
best way.
purpose. How you can raise this other child to fulfill purpose. Not because you're a lawyer. Like sometimes people ask me, you're a lawyer. Which of your children is a lawyer? One of them should, no, now that is not it. What if they want to be something else? What if God created them to be something different? Why should I impose them to be
It's
lawyers?
not an inheritance.
You understand? They tell you, one of them is supposed to be lawyer now. I mean, that is not. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
You allow them be who they want to be, but with guidance.
Okay.
So discipline, there's discipline and there's persecution. So if it's discipline, fine. But where you discipline a child to the point that you blind the child's eye, like some of the cases we see, you beat the child to a point where the child is disfigured. No, now that is not discipline. That is not discipline. That is not, it's unacceptable.
Okay. Now, with everything you've said, how would you describe your style of parenting? Bearing in mind, what your parents did or how you were raised growing up, and some of the things you said you were going to do to your kids or you wouldn't, but maybe you ended up doing. How would you describe your style of parenting?
I don't think I ended up doing what I really didn't like to do, because I consciously told myself that I was going to be different, especially from my mom, who was not a friend. That's a story for another day. She was always antagonistic. So I told myself that I wasn't going to be antagonistic to my children.
Okay.
I try as much as possible to, even if sometimes I remember the one that's doing master, she recalled one day how I let her fight with her younger brother. They were always,
At each other's
at each
throats.
other. So I said, yeah, today I'm not gonna fight. So I left them to fight and fight, and then they now settled themselves.
Wow.
So you see, it's not easy raising children, like I said earlier. It's really not easy, and there's no one style fits all.
Okay.
But bottom line is what I do. Like I talked about my daughter, going into, I don't, I don't. I spare the rod. I don't use the rod like that.
Okay, you prefer to
I
converse
prefer
with
to
them.
talk with them. I
Okay.
sit you down and say, look, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is that. Growing up, these are the mistakes I made. I wouldn't want you to make these mistakes. Growing up, this is what my mother did to me that I didn't like. I don't want to do this to you.
Okay.
So I tell them, and then we just talk.
You're vulnerable with them. You're honest with
Yes,
them.
very, very honest with them.
And this works for you.
Yes, it works for me.
Like you said, children are different.
Yes.
There are people who believe that sometimes you really have to use the word, because that is the only message they get. That is the only time they know that, oh, mommy is serious.
Honestly, I disagree to an extent. You see, everybody, if you speak to the minds of people, it will make a whole lot of difference.